Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Laurentian Valley Council in committee meeting, November the 3rd. Welcome any people listening in and to all of council and staff. Dean, we'll get started. Call to order. Mover and a seconder. Jen and Alan.
So we have a motion for moved by Councillor Gauthier, second by Councillor Wren, that the council and committee meeting of November 3rd, 2020 be called to order at 5:30.
All in favor? Carried.
I do call to the order. Call to order. Mayor Bennett.
Present.
Reeve Robinson.
Present.
Councillor Gauthier.
Present.
Councillor Ugly.
Present.
Councillor Blow.
Present.
Councillor Watt.
Present.
Councillor Wren.
Present.
All members are present.
Okay, can I get approval of the agenda? Brian and Keith.
Moved by Councillor Ugly, second by Councillor Watt, that the agenda of the council and committee meeting of November 3rd, 2020 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, there is none. Delegations, there's none. Under planning, economic development services, we have business. Now, I just want to mention before we get started that we do have a very in-depth agenda tonight. I don't want to rush through anything just to make the time. So if we do find ourselves getting close to the deadline and we haven't got through everything, we can certainly table some of the items to our next meeting. So just a heads up on that. Yes, and also, I'm sure council is aware, but we did lose our long-term standing public works foreman. Maurice Snyder died last week, and our condolences go out to his family. So we'll get into Katie. Your report, please.
Yes, good evening. So obviously a pretty in-depth report with activities, a busy month, but the biggest thing to note is that we have started the website redesign and development process. I will say I'm very impressed with our choice of eSolutions group with the way that they've started the planning procession and how they've been handling the beginning stages of this process. So very excited to be working with them. And obviously I'll be engaging and providing more information as we progress with that project, as it is going to be pretty lengthy and in-depth. And then just a thing to note that we did launch the contest, Show Us Your LV, a photo contest. And these photos will also lead us to using, relevant and recent content on our website too. So if you guys can help spread the news on that contest, that would be great.
Okay, any questions for Katie? Debbie?
I'm just wondering what the cost was for the website.
It was within budget.
Which is 21?
27,000.
27,000.
Yeah, but the one thing to note is that as we're going through the quote that we received, and as we're assessing what we actually will be needing on the website, that figure will change, but it will never go above. If anything, it will be less than the 27,000, depending on what choices we choose. So they'll be rolling out some demonstrations as to different applications that we could adopt to have on the website and things like that. And we're just in the discussion of if there's ideas that we want for a certain kind of interactive component, is there an extra cost for that, or is that factored in, and things like that. So we did have a preliminary discussion on that, and the number has shifted a bit, but it's always going to stay within our budget.
Okay, any other questions for Katie? If not, keep up the good work, Katie. Thank you. Look forward to seeing the pictures.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, we're down to subcommittees, Pembroke and Area Airport. Alan.
Okay, so things at the airport for regular local traffic remain slow, but we're still quite busy with the military, Ministry of Natural Resources, OPP, and Orange Air. You may have heard that this past week we had a small plane crash at the airport that closed the runway for about 3 to 4 hours. The pilot had some minor injuries, but nothing serious. Unfortunately, his plane is completely written off. So all of the safety reports and the investigation are done and have been sent off to Transportation Safety and Transport Canada.
Okay, any questions for Alan? Okay, if not, emergency management program. Laurie, do you have anything to add?
Nothing really to add at this time, other than to just draw people's attention to that we did have a few calls related to the higher than usual Ottawa River levels at this time of the year, and just that there's at this point no element of concern, just to dealing with additional rainfall that had happened farther up in the system. But just a reminder too that the ottawariver.ca website does have a lot of really good information. They have definitely improved that this year, so that is a place that we are monitoring, but also that ratepayers can check at any time.
Thanks, Laurie. I know I appreciate you sending me the information as well, so we can forward down to Sullivan Point Road area with some concerned residents, but thank you. Any questions for Laurie? Okay, if not, we're down to corporate services. And Charlene, we'll start with the procurement policy.
Okay, just on the procurement policy, there was a couple of changes as we were starting to implement the policy itself this last week that the Public Works noticed. So we wanted to bring that to your attention and change it as soon as possible so that we can move forward. So under 10.2, you'll see the strikeout and put in with regards to what we're recommending. So upon approval by both the CAO and the department head, together for purchases between $15,000 and $24,999, the department head shall award the tender proposal and finalize contract provisions. So this is consistent with the responsibility that the department heads have with regards to between $15,000 and $24,999 when it comes to having the CAO as well, the approval authority, along with the department head. And then the second item was further adding wording under Appendix B for recurring and non-competitive expenditures to allow for the vehicles and equipment repairs to be completed. So one thing we noticed is that a truck was in for its annual inspection before the licensing, and there was some maintenance that needed to be done that was over the limit. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't have to close up put everything back together on the vehicle and then get prices for it and go to another place. I think where we're getting our maintenance done is the closest place that we can probably get some of that maintenance done. And it hasn't given us too much of an issue with regards to overpricing or that. I think that basically covers it. Mark, do you have anything else to include in that comment?
Sorry, that double mute. No, it would just, yeah, we were as the treasurer had noted, we were into annual safeties for the trucks, and it did the way it had previously read is that everything under $25,000 needed additional approval from the CAO and the treasurer as well as myself before proceeding. So we were getting into some issues with some of the safety checks. So with the change, we can still get some of that routine maintenance done. And while they have equipment torn apart, it does allow them to finish the work. And we also are comparing it to perhaps a furnace or a boiler that we have a service technician in working on. If it starts to creep up to be several $1,000s and they're already started with the work, it allows them to complete it without us saying, stop, we're going to get additional quotes. It could be lots of feet for several weeks. So it's just really just to clean things up and make it a bit easier for staff.
Brian.
How often does the shop rates and this go out to tender? Has it ever been out? I've had a comment that it always goes to one spot and there's others that would be interested in the work but aren't given the opportunity.
Okay, so we don't actually tender the work, but we do share it between 3 or 4 mechanical service businesses within the township, but we don't actually do a procurement for the servicing.
Is that something, Brian, you want to see down the road?
Well, if you're consistently getting up in the 25 range on repairs, it probably should be something we're looking at.
I wouldn't say it's consistent. I think it's just the odd time. I can hear somebody whispering in the background. I don't know if they're on mute or in any event. They are, it's an unusual situation when we get into that. It might only happen. I think there was one other time this past winter that it occurred with regards to vehicle and equipment. And that was the only other time so far that I can recall. Any other times, Mark? I don't think so. Is that correct?
No, yeah, and that's correct. And what was happening was that the way the policy was written, we were above the $5,000 threshold, so we weren't at the $25,000. We were I'll say creeping close to $10,000. So it was just changing things within the policy. So a lot of times when they get into annual safeties and there's other mechanical, defects that they're finding at that time, we're replacing them at the start of the winter. So, since I've been here since 2012, we've only ever had one truck where it's been a substantial repair in that $25,000 range, but it's always, I'll say less than $5,000, but we just had one this year that was between $5,000 and $10,000, and just starting to raise some questions within the new policy and how we could make it fit.
Okay. Dean, you were going to say something?
No, I think they covered it.
Thanks. Yeah. All right. Debbie?
It's just a wording issue. I don't believe we need the word together. I think it should read upon approval by both the CAO and the department head for purchases between. It's just the word together doesn't need to be in there.
Yep.
Okay, I'll remove that.
And I need a mover and a seconder for the motion.
Okay, we need a mover and seconder for the motion, please. Keith? Al?
Moved by Councillor Watt, second by Councillor Wren, that the Corporate Services Committee for the Corporation Township of Laurentian Valley update procurement policy to reflect the changes as outlined.
All in favor? Carried. Reserve and reserve fund. Charlene.
Okay, so this is something that has just come up again in discussing with staff members. One is the planning reserve. As you know, each year we budget for certain changes for the official plan or for mapping for the official plan or zoning and related study expenses. So instead of it just going into the overall surplus or deficit, we've decided that perhaps we should have a planning reserve, and that will be strictly for use of zoning, official plan, and related study expenses. So any funds that are budgeted for these items during the year and not expensed will be transferred to the planning reserve. This reserve, so then the following year, if instead of budgeting another $5,000 for it, as an example, then we can just simply say we'll take it out of reserves for the $5,000. So it'll be in and out when required. So it would reduce the overall budget each year if it hadn't been used the previous year. And then we can draw upon it for the following year when it is going to be expensed. But thought that it was important not to let that slide each year. And then the municipal drainage, I'm just going to try to share my screen here as well. So the municipal drain, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so after speaking with Claus, instead of use of this reserve fund shall require a resolution of council, he's saying it shall be in accordance with the Municipal Drainage Act instead. So that means that he can go ahead and do the work. And then bill it back to the municipal drain when required, so that if there is a change in the Municipal Drainage Act, then we just have to follow the Drainage Act with regards to that. So this is when we collect municipal drainage fees when residents want to buy into an existing municipal drain. So any municipal drain that we have, if there's a new house that goes up and it's affected by the municipal drain, or their portion that they should be paying because now they have a house on the property, it creates more water storage or runoff for that particular property, and they have to pay a fee for that towards the municipal drain, then it's put in. And right now, and the reason why I came across it and tried to figure out what it was sitting in the deferred revenue account, and in the asset side, which doesn't appear on our expenses and revenues. So I was wondering what that was for, and after speaking with Claus, realized what that amount was for. This will take it out of that deferred revenue account and put it into reserve, and we'll make note of which municipal drain it's for, and make sure that those costs are associated in the future, that revenue can be offset against any future maintenance cost. So those are the only two changes that I have.
Any questions for Charlene on the reserves? Brian? I can only see some people, so I can see.
I just had three minor things on page 9 under fire services. Under limit, it should be funding set out instead of OUN. And then further down under emergency services, under policy, that's got to be the first time I've ever seen the word must used 3 times in a single sentence.
Must meet the certain conditions. Okay, I'll review that.
It's a fairly tough one. And one other one just under water systems, under limit, I think it should be long range capital forecast instead of long range.
You're catching all of these. This was passed back in 2019, I believe.
That's it for the reserve policy.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody else have a question? Again, I can only see a couple of councillors, so we want to speak up. Okay. Do you want to stop sharing your screen, Charlene?
She still has an error there on range.
Why?
It was error NTE.
It's the TE is crossed out.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, jumpins.
Okay. Nothing else? Mover and seconder? Jennifer and Alan.
Moved by Councillor Gauthier, second by Councillor Wren, that Corporate Services Committee recommend for the Corporation of Township of Laurentian Valley review and amend forward the updated reserve and reserve fund policy to the next council meeting for passing.
All in favor? Carried. Move down to report discipline policy.
Okay, so under the discipline policy, I have the short version that was presented the last time, as well as the long version. And first of all, I must apologize. I should have made note, because it was brought to the attention prior from Reeve Robinson, and then today, I guess through Mayor Bennett, is that we want to change the words, like the first one, general, if you, instead of if you, it should be if the employee violates the township policies. So I'll go through that. Dean and I have kind of reviewed that. We'll go through that, make those changes if this is the policy that you choose, and go from there. I just need to know if there's any questions with regards to the overall policies itself, and which one you would prefer, the short or the long version.
So Charlene, maybe I can ask, do we have this policy in place now?
currently not.
Okay. And I take it we're taking ones that are in place and going through them one by one, is what I understand.
The ones that are in place. So, yes, we're reviewing them to see if they need to be updated. There's certainly some ones that need to be updated, and they'll be coming shortly. I have a document that says, there's 11 policies that are recommended by law. So I'm trying to go through those one first. There's obviously violence in the workplace, harassment. There's different ones. So I'm hoping to bring those forward at the next council meeting.
Okay, Brian, you had your hand up.
I just have two items on this one here. One is there's a discrepancy under procedure number 2. It says suspension will be up to 3 days. And then further down under disciplinary measures under suspension, it says 1 to 5 days.
And where is that? Sorry? Under which section?
So the first one is is on page 1 of 1 as it reads under number 2. It says up to 3 days. And then if you go.
I'm sorry.
Okay, suspension pay. Yeah. Okay. Suspension without pay for up to 3 days. Yeah. 2 would be, okay. Under procedure.
And then if you go down to disciplinary measures, letter B under policy, under suspension, it says between 1 and 5 days. So the two of them don't match.
Is this on the short version?
Yeah, I think he's combining. Yeah.
Sorry.
So one's on the short version, one's on the long version, Councillor Ugly. So I guess they're kind of a little bit mixed up there, but so there's, but it is, I see your point, but I guess it depends on which one we choose. I guess at this point we can go up to 3 days, and it probably suspension can, I would say 1 to 5 days is probably the correct one. It just depends on the severity. So we would stick with the suspension under the long one. Even if we decide the short one, I think we'd change that to be.
Yeah, they just need to match.
Yeah, fair enough.
The only other problem I had with this was on page 7. It is under level 3 infractions.
Correct.
The last line there, it says possessing, consuming, or under the influence of alcohol or illicit drugs in the workplace. We're listing alcohol there. Well, marijuana is now legal. It's not an illicit drug, and that could be the drug you're having the most problem with.
Okay.
So we will put that as another one. So alcohol, and then figure out a word. It won't be drugs, I guess, but we'll figure out a word that goes in there. Yeah.
I'm just saying marijuana is not illicit. It's
just
a legal drug.
And maybe it's the word marijuana.
Yeah,
Possessing,
maybe.
consuming, or under the influence of alcohol / marijuana.
Yeah.
Or illicit drugs in the workplace. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would be better.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, I've made that change. Is there a preference for anybody to go to the short or the long so that we can move this forward?
I think Debbie had your hand up, then Al.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not happy with either one. Again, the wording, I have a great deal of difficulty with. Not that I don't understand it. I just don't, it doesn't come across to me as the way a human resources policy should be written. Nowhere, the short version, so I can be clear, the short version I didn't like last time. I didn't even bother looking at it this time. The long version never refers at all to what the responsibilities of the supervisor might be to assist, to guide to an employee. I find that it's to me, it seems very heavy-handed and imbalanced as far as what an employee, again, I don't know who you is. Is you include a supervisor and the CAO? I have no idea. It talks about counseling verbally. It doesn't say who's doing the counseling verbally. It talks about written notice. Doesn't say what that written notice would entail, who would be reviewing it. I'm assuming if a supervisor wrote a written notice, does the supervisor just write what they like and send it on? Is it going to be reviewed by somebody? This is where we can get into a lot of trouble and have some grievances against us if we don't have this very clear and concise It talks about the number of things, and I'm not going to go into all of it in detail, but I think it's way too important to piecemeal. Every municipality in the county of Renfrew gets at least 8 hours of free human resources support from the county human resources department. I would suggest that we refer to that department and ask them to come up with a policy that we can be at least fairly assured that it's correct, that it's not imbalanced, and that would stand up should a grievance be filed against us.
Okay. Alan, go ahead, Charlene.
Sorry, just a comment. And yes, once that those words "you" and all of that was brought up, but this is a book that is published by the Canada Law Book. And it comes directly from that book. It hasn't been altered with regards to any sort of words. So it is illegal. It has been vetted by a lawyer. It's a lawyer that writes these policies, just so everybody knows that. It's certainly done by a well-known HR lawyer that has taught the human resources for the AMCTO. So I'm confident that, this would stand up, but I agree that some of the wording needs to be changed. However, if council deems it necessary for us to go to the HR department, which I don't know if they've been vetted by a legal authority or not, I'm certainly conducive to doing that as well.
Okay. Alan?
Okay, I'll just go back to my original comment from the last meeting, and the shorter the policy, the absolute better it is. The more words you have in a policy like this, the more lines that are in there, the more gray it gets, and the more somebody's going to be able to pick at it. You should be short and concise and exact, and that short policy, that's what it is. It's short, it's concise, exact. This is the way it needs to be done. The longer you get and the more you put in, the more questions people are going to be able to ask of the policy.
Okay, anybody else? So what's council's wishes? You want Charlene to change what we've suggested tonight and send it to the county? Do you get a comment on it? Or are you happy with it with the change of names? Jennifer?
I'm totally fine with it, and I agree with Alan. Shorter the better. You can't pick it to pieces if it's longer. So,
Alan, are you happy with the way it is? Other than
yes, actually, it's quite similar to what I've dealt with, even in a union environment. You got to keep it very, very tight, very concise. The less, if a lawyer gets a hold of it, the bigger it is, the more questions they can ask of your policy. Better to be short and concise, and this is what it is. If there's discipline, this is the way it's going to go. Bang, bang, bang.
Okay, Chris.
Thank you. Do we get a legal review or opinion or anything before we put it into a motion?
Not normally. Like I said, we can do that. We don't normally do that. It's not some of these policies are all over. Every organization has them. They have different versions of it. I mean, as Debbie has stated, I mean, we could ask we do have the county ones here as well. We have a lot of format. We've used theirs. We could review theirs a little bit closer and see if, in this case, we thought this was kind of a better scenario, the short one, I guess, from last meeting, but council didn't feel that was the case. So we got the longer one, but the county one is still out there. But normally when we get them, Councillor Plow, that they already have been vetted through either a lawyer or a human resources specialist. We're not reinventing the wheel.
Okay, so why don't we bring it back, change the wording on it, and maybe do a review with the county one and bring it back to council. Is that council's wishes?
The short or the long one?
The short one. I'm sorry, I just needed maybe a show of hands if that's what you want, or.
So do we get the county, bring the county one forward? Is that what we're suggesting?
No. Just saying, you have the county one. Compare it with the county.
Yeah.
Change
Okay.
the wording that we've asked for.
Okay.
And bring it back and let everybody look at it. Jennifer?
The short
I'm
one?
just wondering, could we just vote? Could we have the option to vote now, short or long, and just not table this and get it done?
Well, some of the wording has to be changed in the least.
Not necessarily over the short one, I guess. So there's nothing really to change there as far as I'm aware of, unless somebody has any comments. That's the only thing. If they go to short, then that's it, really, the 6 bullets.
Well, there is one word in item number 1, if you violate. So I'd put if an employee violates our policies, the employee may be subject to discipline or termination. So I just changed the word you, and I think that's the only one.
And I guess just the suspension line, as Councillor Hughley brought up, it'd be 1 to 5 days.
Yeah.
Thought there was another one in here that said we instead of Laurentian Valley. But maybe,
There's a number of yous and we's in that short version as well.
Number 5 says you may be terminated.
Yeah. I can make sure that those are updated with the proper wording, and a copy of our employee discipline notice. Number 6 can change to the Township of Laurentian Valley.
Okay, what's council's wishes?
I'd make a motion that we accept the short version and move forward.
Jennifer, a seconder?
Yep.
Okay, therefore we have a move by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Gochi, that the Corporate Services Committee for the Corporation of the Township of Laurentian Valley review the 2 versions and select version, the short version of the discipline policy, and forward the preferred one to the next council meeting for passing.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, carried. Charlene, user fee based budget.
Okay, so this is going to get fun. I'm just going to save this, get rid of that. And I'm going to share my screen. Whoops, I need to share my screen because there has been a few little changes with regards to, it's hard to talk and make this computer work at the same time. A few short changes with regards to what was presented to you earlier from, there we go, from the presentation that was presented. So again, we'll start with the user fee based 2021 budget. So I just wanted to explain these budget notes explanations. So the budget notes are in the documents that are provided. You notice them, and I've had a couple of questions. These budget notes relate to the general ledger account number above the budget note. Okay, the 2020 BV means 2020 budget value, which is the actual budget that was passed, and the note that I associated with the GL account at the time of the passing. And the 2021 PE means 2021 preliminary budget that is associated with that GL account. So just above. So is everybody reasonably clear on that now? Because I know it is a little bit confusing, like what are those initials mean, but it's something that's produced by the computer program, and it's nothing that I can change unless I go in and delete all those little initials each time. Is everybody okay with that?
So Charlene, may I interject and just say, so the budget note for 2020 underwater says BV 675 flat rate, 3.85% increase. So
Yes.
That's where we increased the water in our 2020 budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Debbie, you had a question?
I just find that having budget notes in here that don't have any notes attached rather confusing, that's all.
They are just below, like the budget notes. It's all highlighted in red. So I'm not aware of any budget notes that don't have anything attached to them.
If I may, Mayor, I guess what I need more explanation then, because I just didn't, like, when I see one that says splash pad and LV trail, I'm not sure, like, what you're trying to say to me about the splash pad and the trail.
So it's just, it's a transfer from the general account. So it's a revenue. So under that, I'm saying that we're transferring from the general, the expense of that, to a revenue and water. So therefore it gets expensed to the whole township rather than just the water users. So for both the splash pad and the LV trail. So that means because the water meter from the city of Pembroke reads the water consumption, right? So that means that that increase to the general ledger to the water users, if I didn't transfer this into as revenue, then it's just the water users that are paying for those two items. This way it's an expense on the general account on the taxation budget, and it's expensed over all of the ratepayers instead of just the water users.
Debbie.
Charlene, thank you for that. It's just that explanation is kind of what I was looking for when I was going through this, so I could understand it. That's all.
Right.
So I think, Charlene, in previous years, if I'm not mistaken, that sometimes you put note 1, note 2, note 3, and in the bottom of the budget, you would explain what that meant.
Right.
And I guess that's what we're accustomed to in your budgets.
Right.
And then we see this year.
Well, and it was there last year too.
Okay.
It was the same way. So I'm trying to use the system rather than downloading all of the numbers from the system into a spreadsheet, making all of the changes, because I have to do a number of changes to that spreadsheet because it doesn't have, when I download it from the system into the spreadsheet, it doesn't have any of the formulas for adding up the columns. So I have to go in and insert every formula into everything. So this way it's automatically generated, and I'll make note of that though, for sure. I'll just put 2021 PE, which will show up, and I'll just put note 1 and I'll address it for the taxation.
Okay.
Point well taken, for sure.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on water.
Okay, so the first other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention was the insurance impact. So insurance rates, we've just been made aware of that on Monday morning, that they're looking at an approximate increase of 28 to 30%, according to estimate. I've made the changes now, and I'll go through those changes. You don't have those changes because I wasn't able to deliver it. If we were sitting here in council, you'd all have updated lists, but I've made note of it in these slides. So I just wanted to also make a note that insurance across the board for municipalities in the county are experiencing rate increases from anywhere from 10% to 50%. And I have a list of those municipalities that I have been made aware of, but I didn't think it was right to publish it here. But that is, most of them are on the high end. 10% was only one. There was a 13%, but there was a number that were closer to the 50%. So what we've done, Dean and I, we've asked our insurance agent to get back to us with what has increased. Is it based on the market or our experience? Why are they gauging 28 to 30% increase? And we want to know a little bit more information about that. So we're waiting on that. And I'm also recommending that, we've been now 4 years with Cowan, perhaps that we should be going to tender to see. And I've attached here the yearly comparisons from 2009 up to 2021, proposed. And we may have to, if council does recommend go to tender, we may have to ask them to spot us a month or two, the same as when we did it the last time. Our other insurance company insured us for the month of January while we did all the finalization of this RFP back in 2017. So that may happen again, and we'll see how that goes. But my recommendation is maybe it is time to go out to tender. But I am seeing rate increases from 10 to 50%. So I think it will be better once we get the market and the experience increase, what defines what. I think that'll be better telling. Is it just based on our experience, or is it because the market is high? If the market is high, I don't know going to tender is going to be the best result, but it could be. You never know. So at this time,
Sorry, Charlene, Alan.
Yep.
So just on that, I think a budgetary expense of close to $300,000 a year, we should be going out to tender at least every 5 years anyway. So I would agree that for this money, even if the market is high, we're probably due to go out to tender again.
Yep.
For 300 grand.
Yep.
Okay, maybe I could just remind council too that again, when Charlene is sharing the screen, I can only see maybe 2 councillors, so you'll have to speak up if you have a question.
I guess just to comment too as well, just so council, there's not a lot of insurance carriers that do this, so there may be 2 others. So we could also check to see if council would like the information to see what their clients are. Maybe we could check in to see if they're experiencing same kind of rate increases. But certainly we will be doing a tender in this year, if not this year, next year for sure.
Okay, Charlene.
Okay. And this is the same as what was presented to you. So the 2020 final city bill for water obviously is not received. We usually receive it in late December or early January. The water is usually pretty good. This is the same sort of comment with regards to a 500 milliliter bottle bought in a bulk, or as much as 8 cents, or as much as $2.50 for a name brand purchase out of a vending machine. A note that the insurance costs were budgeted at an increase of 5%. I've since updated that to 25%, and I'll show you on the next slide. Right now, our reserve balance is $531,261.51. And I'm recommending that the flat rate remain the same at $675. The changes since the agenda was delivered, the insurance, therefore there's an additional $2,918 for insurance. Total required to balance the budget is now $503,949. So on your page that has the water rate options, if you added that in, you'll see the new balance of $503,949. The recommendation still remains at $675, and that is also consistent with the water financial plan estimates shown on the following slide. So this is the projected flat rate increases for the financial plan that was passed earlier this year. And it did remain the same for 2021. You'll see a little dip in 2022, but that's because we're getting close to the end of one of our borrowing. So this changes, if we include the insurance increase, it changes the transfer to reserve section on your options sheet. At $675, we would transfer $15,519.29. $680, we would transfer the 18, almost $19,685, etc., as you can see on the screen. So just if there's any questions with regards to the overall budget, if I go through it, you'll have to look on your sheet. I don't have it up on the screen. I can bring it up on the screen if you want. But obviously the first note on the water was the $675 flat rate increase for 2020. I've explained the splash pad and the LV trail. The 2021 in the expenses, the West End water main and Joe Street is there. The debt interest is just for Joe Street because we borrowed from the sewer. Down in the audit fees, we had budgeted $10,000 last year. The year before, we had budgeted $5,000 in 2019, but we see we're not done yet with the legal negotiations, and we anticipate that there may be some legal fees with regards to that. Further on down, the insurance there, I had put the 5% increase. I've added in $2,918 to up it to the 25% increase. Under water hydrants, I have a new hydrant for restock and upcoming repairs. It increased $2,500 in the budget. You'll notice it went from $2,000 in 2020 to $4,500 in 2021. And then under water meters, we have a valve repair and calibration, and that went from 10 to 35,000, a difference of 25,000 in the budget. And that are the only changes from the 2020 budget. Is there any questions with regards to that?
So I just
Go ahead, Alan.
I just have a comment, and Charlene, you're confident that the reserves we have with what's coming down the pipe in the next 5 years, we're in good shape with that amount of a reserve?
We're not in bad shape. We're not in great shape. 503,000, I don't think will cover. Oh my goodness, that scared me. Thanks, Brian.
Not mine.
That's all right.
Sorry, I've lost my track with regards to reserve. So we still have a couple of projects. We have Roy Street, and we have, there's a number of projects that are together. Hamilton Street, Karen Street, Bank Street, to do those water areas as well that are on the list in the water financial plan. The next big project we're anticipating to start in 2022 with financing starting in 2023. And that's why in the overall financial plans, you see a little increase in 2023 and then a larger increase in 2024, because then we would see probably 2 payments in 2024, where we're probably only going to see 1 payment in 2023 by the time we do the financing and complete one of those projects, which we anticipate it to be Roy Street at this time.
Cool.
I've also included this screen as well. So this is our 10-year water flat rate comparison. So we have in blue is the LV flat rate, where you can see that it's at $6.75. The city flat rate, which is close to $460, and then the city at 1.5 times. So we're getting closer and closer to that city 1.5 times, where they kind of like to see that. And of course, this is just water. It doesn't include their water and their sewer, because they get a bill for water and sewer on their utility bill. The sewer gets billed on the tax bill. The water gets billed separately. That's you, Tim, this time.
Battery. Sorry.
Okay. So any questions with regards to water?
Brian.
You're on mute. Yeah.
My question was just with regards to the graph and things going up in 2014. My concern is that if we maintain the same price, we're going to be having to do a substantial jump at that point. And are we better to raise it $5 so that we soften that blow than to hit them all at once down the road and try and get to it on a little more gradual basis?
That's up to council, but yep.
So we went up 3.85% last year, which is about $20, right? $21 or something.
It was $6.50 to $6. It was $25.
$25. Okay. And we're not sure of the year before, right?
The year before, I think we were at $600, $625.
So we've gone up $25 a year, which is still within the norm, but
Getting enough.
But I would say even $5 or $10 is at least softening the blow than to hit them with $50 or $60 in a few years.
Chris?
So I asked the question, how many users, and it came back around 630 or so.
676 users.
It's right on the,
It's on the option sheet.
the first option under, it says the 0% increase is 676 users at equals 519,000.
So it's $930 some per user.
No, it's $675. Oh, because plus the metered users draft, sorry. So when we calculate in what we used for metered, and I'm estimating what the December bill is going to be used for the commercial metered users, that plus the 676 users plus the 63,168.29 comes to the 519,468.
But your typical residential is
Flat rate.
flat rate is 675.
Yes.
Did that answer your question, Chris?
He still has a question.
Go ahead.
And do we have the infrastructure in place for individual meters, or we do not?
I would highly recommend not to do that unless we're forced by the government. It creates a whole lot of problems, especially with older homes. I've been through 2 meter changes. One was a new one in the town of Renfrew, and then one was a replacement of old water meters in the town of Arnprior, and it becomes a nightmare. Not something that I would ever recommend doing, unfortunately, but if we're ever forced to, and sometimes what people have to understand is sometimes when you're actually doing metered as well is, yes, you may reduce the overall consumption, but then you have to end up increasing the rates because you have to offset. You still have the same expenses and not necessarily the same usage year over year. So you may get people, reducing their consumption, but the rates then have to increase. You still have that base dollar that you have to cover for expenses. So it's not the best way of doing it. It's not the worst way of doing it, but to do it just to do it at a cost of approximately $500 a meter to install at 676, it does become, you're looking at $338,000 that you'd have to, before you even start reading the meters, you've got to put on the water rates.
So the answer was no, we don't have the infrastructure in place?
We don't, nor do I want it.
Keith had a question, then Debbie. You're muted again, Keith.
I agree with what Brian had as opposed to, I'd like to see the flat rate stay at the 675, but it is such a big jump when you move ahead. And I think a minimal increase, especially with COVID and with jobs and things like that for the public out there, I think something like $5 or $7 would be in order.
Okay. Debbie?
I'm racking my brain here. Can you remind me, why is there such a huge jump from 2023 to 2024?
So that would be the debt charges that we would have to pay back on any borrowed money that we have for any of those projects.
Okay. So do we have a motion, Brian and Keith, as to what, $7 increase per user? Or Brian, you pick, or Chris, you have a question?
No, I'd like to see a 2% increase.
Okay. Brian, you want to make the motion, or Keith, or Chris?
I'll motion a $10 increase.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Keith? Do you have to make a motion?
I guess so. I'm looking for consensus. We'll bring it back to council, but we'll get motion. Sure, we can do it that way too. So so moved by Councillor Yulee, second by Councillor Watt, that the water users usage rate increased by $10 for the year 2021.
All in favor? Carried.
Okay. Why is this? Then we go on to the wastewater, the sewer. So the sewer rates are based on a tax rate. In 2020, the sewer levy was for $498,810. There are still some outstanding tax appeals dating back to 2017. So 17, 18, 19, 20, and now 21. I've increased the insurance by 5% on your presentation. I've adjusted that to increase it to 25. Our reserve balance is $1 million and change. And our 2021 levy is to be determined. So here are the changes since the agenda. So the 25% increase on the insurance is an additional $1,990. And the total required balance then becomes $456,817. If I go to the actual budget and go through the notes, in 2020, we increased the levy by 2% as the first note. In 2021, the frontage charges. So I missed that in 2020. There is the final year for those frontage charges was 2019, and therefore I have not billed it or budgeted for that revenue in 2021. The $11,698 is year 5 of 10 for the West End water boring against the sewer reserve. So you'll see an in and an out. You'll see in as the revenue, and you'll see out transfer to reserves of that amount as well to go back into reserves from the water borrowing from the sewer. Another note under wastewater, in 2020, we increased it by $20,000 for the City of Pembroke's bill. I left it the same. I don't anticipate a huge increase for 2021. And Mark didn't indicate any increase as well there. Insurance, I've upped it to the 25%. So again, that's $1,990 extra above and beyond the insurance costs that are there now. Capital, we have $25,000. That's the completion of the Hampton Street pumping station renovation. We're going to have part of it done by the end of this year. That was budgeted for, and the remainder will be budgeted for 2021. And then the next note down is the transfer to reserves. That year 5 of 10, the $11,698. And those are the only notes from the budget that there was any changes that were reflected. Other than the debt, obviously the interest goes down each year, and that's up in the first page, about middle of the page. Operator licenses went up $125, but you'll see in the third column over where the changes were reflected. And I think that's contracted services on the lift station went down from $12,000 to $8,500, a difference of $3,500 savings. So when we go to the options, sorry, I'm on the wrong sheet. When we go down to the options pages, I see the 2020 levy was $498,810. The amount to balance 2021's budget right now is sorry, why didn't I? Oh, over here. With the insurance increase is $456,817, and therefore our transfer to reserves changes. If we go 0% increase on the levy, we transfer $41,000. If we go up $1,000, it's $46,981. 1.5% is $49,000, and so on and so forth, according to the screen that's on the you can see now, not according to what you have in your package. Any questions with regards to wastewater/sewer?
Mark, I have one question for you on the Hamilton Street. Have we done anything to the outside of the building as far as painting or?
No, we want to get some of the interior stuff done, what was recommended to us this year, and then exterior is part of that money for next year. So new siding, fixing up the brick that's spalling and that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay. So it'll be done next year. Okay.
Yes.
Brian.
Brian.
I was just wondering about the 30,000 in write-offs.
So the 30,000 in write-offs, if you recall back, you might not have been here, Brian. Back in the previous years, trying to think when that hit us, 2017, 2016, when there was a number of appeals for the big box stores, because we have that cost of doing business as well. So it not only affects because our levy is based on assessment, so that is a reduction, but also the cost of doing business in the sewer area also gets a hit. So it was a large increase to the overall sewer when all of those years became the tax write-off, so the tax appeals. So most of the box stores are under appeal right now, and we have no idea what the percentage is of the assessment that is under appeal. I've asked, they have not answered, and they got rather offended that I even asked.
Okay. Any other questions for Charlene? Alan?
So just again, Charlene, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel with what we have in wastewater reserve? Do we need to put more away than what we have been long range?
No, I think we're good for now. I mean, unless we got into major renovations with that Hamilton Street pumping station, then we may not have enough. But certainly for the projects that we're looking at over the next 5 years to 10 years, we certainly have enough in the reserves to cover that we wouldn't have to borrow for the sewer portion of the remainder of Roy Street, Bank, Hamilton, those areas. We should be okay for those, for the sewer portion of those projects.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is council okay with the suggestion of the zero increase? Okay. Charlene, next.
So then we go on to the waste collection. Again, this is the slide that you did receive. The 2020 rate was $180 per unit. The reserve balance is $263. The projected increase in tipping fees as well as contracted services, both are based on volumes. So we've seen, and we can attribute that, I think, to the COVID-related increases due to more people working from home, more waste is being collected, more people are having time to go through their closets, go through all of their paperwork and get rid of a lot of their waste and are sending it to our waste site. The recommended increase rate to the rate, I was recommending $195, and I'll show you why I'm recommending now $200 per unit. And that would represent an increase of 11.11% instead of 8.33%. So when I go on to the collection, the pressures. So in 2021, the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre is going to be doing a gasification, is being replaced at a cost to the township of approximately $320,000 to $350,000. Currently, there is $307,000 in reserves. It is recommended to transfer into reserves in 2021 at least the $25,000, which represent a flat rate of $200. In 2025, the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre has another gas upgrade project at a total cost of $500,000. Laurentian Valley would be responsible for approximately 23% or $115,000, which represent a further $28,750 to reserves for the years 2022 to 2025 to make sure that we have in reserves the $115,000. Rates are estimated at 200 to 210 for the years 2022 to 2025 with no further pressures to the budget. So that's if there's no further pressures. So that is why I'm recommending that. When I go through the waste collection, so in 2020, we had 3,941 units at $180 per unit. If I go to waste collection options, we're looking at $200 is my recommendation. So then we can transfer the $25,000 into reserves. And that screen has not changed for council. That same option sheet is there. The budget notes for the accounts receivable waste collection fees. In 2020, we had 9 units that we were billing. So that's the commercial units because we don't necessarily pick up the commercial unless they're actually being billed separately. So if there is a renter on a commercial unit, that's where we start billing and they want to be billed the collection fees, we bill them. And in 2021, we'll pick up another unit. We already started billing that extra unit in 2020. 2021 for the tipping fees, it's based on forecast for the 2020. I'm forecasting that we're going to be close to $290,000 for our tipping fees. And a tipping fees is what we're actually paying to the Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Centre for the volume of a waste that is being dumped into the landfill. And the collection contract is in 2020, we made that decision that the September weekly collection was going to start. We're keeping it for 2021. And the 2021 is based on the forecast for 2020 of $475,000. And again, our contract is based on tonnage and not based on number of properties that they're picking up or not based on a flat fee. So it is on tonnage. And right now we're still amidst the COVID, and I anticipate that there will still be people off work or working from home in 2021, at least for the first 6 months of it. And that's why I've budgeted closer to what we're going to see the actuals for 2020 come in at. I've left the transfer to landfill reserve at 0 until we select an option. And if we look at the option of $200, we'll see that $25,500 being transferred into reserves.
Charlene, when we see the increase in tipping fees as a cost, we also must see the reflection of increased revenue getting a percentage of tipping fees.
Right. So we record that revenue against our taxation budget. Those royalty fees go right into our taxation portion of the budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they don't reflect in here, they'll reflect in the taxes. And I will update that as well for 2021 to reflect those increases.
Okay. Any questions for Charlene? Anybody wants, Brian?
I just have one question. You're anticipating that the tonnage will maintain that high rate through COVID, and I'm just wondering, is there a point where people have their houses cleaned out and it should start to drop off, or are we? Is there an infinite amount?
I'm anticipating at least 6 months that we're going to see more volumes. One, because, as an example, if you're at home, and you work up at CNL, but you're working from home, you're generating more garbage at home during the day than you are for lunch and breakfast and all that up at CNL, as an example. There are a lot of larger businesses that are that currently, live in our township, they're employees and they're working from home. There's a large percentage still working from home, and I anticipate that will still increase. If in the end, at the end of the year, we'll transfer into reserves, whatever the amount is, so that, we'll gain more into reserves, which is all the better. Then we won't have to put as much into reserves in 2022 to 2025 to cover off that 115,000.
I believe, Alan, you had a question, then Jennifer.
Well, no, I was just going to say you have to realize too that more people are eating at home now, and there's more takeout food, and some of that takeout containers have been moved from recycling into garbage today as well, which would reflect those numbers. But I would suggest that we do the 200 as Charlene is saying we should.
Jennifer.
Just to go further, there's a lot of kids that are now staying home and being homeschooled as well. So with more cases coming into all the high schools and stuff, it's going to be more and more. So I would go with the 200 as well.
Okay. Anybody else? So we need a motion for that, Dean? Alan and Jennifer?
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Gauthier, that the council and committee recommend to increase waste collection rates to 200 per user for the year 2021.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay, and the next up is the 2021 streetlights. As you know, last year during the conversation, it was thought that perhaps we could transfer this over to the general tax levy. So the LED project final transfer to the general fund to offset the expenses that we incurred from that LED project is happening in 2020. The 2020 rate was $35 per unit. 1,084 units represents $37,940. The reserved draft balance at this time, because we might have some surplus that will transfer into the reserve as well from the end of the year. Right now, though, it's at $22,226.17. The tax levy impact for 2021 would be $13,000. The tax levy increase to that $13,000 is 0.24% to transfer that into the overall tax levy, or we reduce the 2021 rates to $12 per unit for all the streetlight users. So I just wanted to put that up there in the event. So I'm leaving that up to council to decide whether they want to change that over to the general levy, or if they want to reduce the rate from $35 per unit to $12 per unit.
Alan?
So it'd be my suggestion, this is a pretty small account, that it just gets transferred into the general levy and be done with it. The whole municipality, then each of us pay for streetlights within the municipality.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Going to move in a seconder on it then, please. Alan and Debbie.
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Reeve Robinson, that the streetlights for the year 2021 be transferred to the general levy.
All in favor? Carried. Well, Charlene, that was pretty short.
That's not too bad. So I'll bring those forward. So the anticipation is that we'll pass those budgets November the 17th at our council meeting. I'll bring those rates forward and those changes to that council meeting.
Okay, we'll move down to efficiency funding.
Okay, and I'll just, I think this is the one. This is the efficiency funding now that you're seeing up on the screen. The recommendation is that we receive this report for information purposes, but in further that the Corporate Services Committee recommends to Council that we fund the 2020 portion of the new position of the Community Development Officer from taxation. So in 2019, the province gave us efficiency funding to the tune of $642,370, and we have spent certain funds to date. Of course, the PDF goes crazy. I'm just going to find my reserves just a second so I can bring up another screen because it's there we go. Can you see the reserve schedule now? The Excel spreadsheet?
Yep. A
Okay.
little small.
Yeah. Okay, I'll bring it up here.
It's about the same as the other one.
Okay, so here's what we've spent out of the efficiency funding of 642. We're holding 100,000, which is the two highlighted items for the airport fuel dispensing system, which I anticipate will happen in 2021. I think the final costing is coming shortly from the airport. And what I'm suggesting is the new position here at $51,250 at this time be funded out of the general levy. We are seeing some, what we anticipate some surpluses. We could wait until the end of the year if you want to see how that fares out, but I'm recommending that we take that out of the efficiency, like remove it from the efficiency funding. Then we would have a balance of $197,014.21 to find further efficiencies. If we leave it in, we have 145,000 left to date. That perhaps when we start looking at the capital portion of our operating for 2021, we may be able to recommend some of those funds to be taken out of the efficiency funding. And you'll see here the website update will be taken out. The actual cost will come out of that efficiency funding as well. For 2020, there's a road condition evaluation that is being done. The East End servicing expansion is not done this year. We can still budget for that in 2021. The hot box was purchased at pretty close to 45,000, if not at 45,000. So that is that portion of the efficiency funding to date. Any questions?
Alan?
So I just make the comment that the new position should have been out of the general levy right from day one. It doesn't really belong in efficiency funding, and Charlene's right. I think we need to move it to where it should be, and it doesn't really belong here.
Okay. So we'll move forward with the recommendation from Charlene.
Can we get a mover and a seconder?
Mover and a seconder.
Wren.
Alan and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Gauthier, that the Corporate Services Committee receive this report for information purposes, and further that the Corporate Services Committee recommends to Council that we fund the 2020 portion of the new position of the Community Development Officer from taxation.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Dean, do we want to move Tim up, or do you want him with the...
It's up to him. I don't know what his evening is. We could move him up, or if he wants to sit through, it's up to him.
We're probably going to be another half hour before we get to your report, Tim. It's up to you.
That's all right. I'll listen.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I'll listen. That's okay.
Okay. Okay, Dean.
Okay. I guess just moving forward to a couple items that we've had. The first one being this.
Dean, you're on mute, I think.
I put myself on mute. I thought I was open. Sorry. So the first item being a strategic plan review. If council has any questions, we've made well, obviously the matrix is the same matrix. Department heads met about a week ago or so, and we've gone through the particular strategic plan objectives, adjusted some for the most part, and got some completed, and it's in front of you for any questions or any discussion, or just for information.
Brian.
I had two questions. One was page 9, objective 3.
Page 9, objective 3.
It's good that Tim's still here. It says that the project status is complete, but only number 2 of 5 is marked as completed. And I'm just wondering whether there's more to be accomplished there, or how come it's marked as being done at this point.
So could you just repeat which one again? I'm just not following where you exactly are. So
I don't have anything in front of me, Brian, so I don't know what
just find out first which one it is, Brian.
It's focus area strategic objective number 3, overall priority 4 or 5, establishing a long-term vision and strategic objectives for fire service and risk assessment.
We did that last year.
Yeah, so it's marked as complete. Number 2 is complete, the risk assessment, but there's the evaluate the equipment and manpower, review of municipal agreements with the M&R and neighboring municipalities, exploring first response agreements, and collaborate with municipalities regarding radio communication. So one part of it is complete, but there's 4 other parts there that.
Well, that is done yearly, okay? It's all complete except the radio part, okay? I don't know when the radio part is ever going to be finished, but like all the rest of the mutual aid plan, all that is done every year, okay? So if that's what it's asking, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, or I would, but.
I think there's what Tim is saying is there's a review of it yearly with regards to the other thing, but the risk assessment was the big project based under that one. That was kind of
okay. It was the only one that was marked as complete, but the whole project was marked as complete. So that's why I was just questioning what the status of the others were.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then the other one I had was on page 14.
Which objective is that?
Area under planning, development, and economic stability. It's support commercial expansion for economic development and to grow assessment tax revenues. It's another one that's marked complete. And my question is under number 3, what needs to be done is township staff were to implement recommendations once the BR&E was complete. And my question is, what recommendations were implemented by the staff?
And
I'll pass it to Lori since it's hers.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the items there was the retention of the community development officer position as well. And then a number of the items were implemented immediately. And then the rest have been brought into play with the new CDO role, that's part of what her daily activities are doing. So as far as that, we can, bring back another item at another meeting that runs through how that's being implemented. But most of those items, again, have been completed in that. But the entire BR&E was done.
Complete.
Debbie, you're muted, Debbie.
Sorry, I have 2 screens going here. So thank you. So Lori, I would really like to see that as well, because I mean, we talked about the BR&E being very important to us, and we did have a number of the business community participate. So, knowing that we took some recommendation, we actually acted on them. I would just like to see what those recommendations are. So we have a paper trail and acknowledgement in the community that we did move forward with what our business community needed and wanted. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and I can, in consultation with Katie, what I'll do is I'll bring that back for another meeting as well.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Okay, Dean.
Mover and a seconder, please.
Debbie and Brian.
Moved by Reeve Robinson, second by Councillor Ugly, that the Corporate Services Committee acknowledge receipt of the updated strategic plan, timeline matrix, and accept the revised target completion dates.
All in favor? I didn't get enough hands, sorry. Carried. I'd appreciate participation in the voting by everybody. Thank you.
Okay, so the other item moving on to is the operational review. Again, same thing, there's a matrix that's been created to show everything that was recommended. And we've kind of done our best ability to kind of gone through several of them. We've updated some to make different target completion dates, which we put in red. Other ones show that are completed. And some of them that we have decided on that we're not maybe thinking they're applicable. And unless council feels differently, we can have that discussion. But the matrix is there, so open for any comments or just information or whatever.
Debbie first.
Thank you. So it's item AT-01, electronic records management. I'm surprised that it says not applicable. Do we have everything that we need at that point? Because I'm surprised that it came in as a recommendation. It says we already have this. So was there something that the consultants were looking at that felt we needed to upgrade? The reason why I'm saying that is that I think that would be something that would be legitimately use of the efficiency fund that we receive from the province.
Well, our thought process is we do currently have a TomRim system we work on with regards to that. So we didn't feel that there was need for electronic, and our basis being a little bit smaller than the TomRims is working for us. We, we've only had it. We've paid some significant dollars, probably, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years ago. Everybody uses it. We're working with it both. And there is an electronic component too, we're filing our day-to-day activities on our computer going the same system. So that was the feeling that we kind of felt that it wasn't really necessary at this point.
Okay, anybody else? Okay.
Mover and a seconder,
Mover and a
please.
seconder, please. Jennifer and Keith.
Moved by Councillor Gauthier, second by Councillor Watt, that the Corporate Services Committee acknowledge, update, and recommend that the council approve the revised target timelines for the recommendations that came out of the operational review of 2019.
All in favor? Carried.
Okay, moving on to procedural bylaw. I know, and I apologize for being so lengthy. I tried to get it out a little earlier. I got you a few days more. I've heard from a few, and I can certainly go through those comments to the ones I have heard from, just to show. And there are a couple of discussion items that I would like to have. So I'm not sure how you want to approach it, Steve, with regards to. You want to go through maybe?
Well, I think maybe go through the highlighted ones first, and then if there's
and
more
maybe
for council after that, we can go back to those.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just briefly go through the yellow, I'll go through the yellow highlighted items, which was felt that there were the major changes to. The reason we didn't do the strike and bold, I know we try to do that all the time. This time it was a fairly big overhaul, and it was virtually impossible to do the strike and bold. It would have been just a total mess. Laurie was good enough to create the chart at the back that showed the before and after with regards to the ones that are the major ones. So I do apologize if it's just that it needed a really fresh overlook. And so this is kind of the end result we got. So maybe if we just go through, and I'll just go through starting at page 5 of 20 on the Schedule A is what. So we've added 2 definitions, one being electronic participation and the other one being defining what emergency is. And S being what a pandemic means, because of obviously what we've been through. We've added those in there, and there has been some changes in legislation in regards to those, which we'll go through very shortly. So those are 3. I will just keep going. If there's any comments with regards to some of these, I can. I didn't know any final definition part. Was there any concerns there with those 3 additions? Okay.
Oh, good.
Moving to 8.0, which is basically Bill 197 and the allowing open meetings and using electronic participation, which we're doing now. As we all know, the government initially did it for emergencies, but then has since created legislation to allow it to happen all the time. So this is a new clause in there that municipalities are putting in. I guess basically what this says in a nutshell, I'll just recap, is that meetings can be certainly done, which we're doing now, virtually at the call of the chair of the head of council. Also, it does allow for when the pandemic or an emergency ceases, that currently we've put in here that council members may be allowed to kind of participate virtually and be counted in quorum. And if that's the case, if we go down that path, we're suggesting that a person must attend a council meeting at least physically in the chambers when we're there at least once every 90 days. Now, there's no secret to 9 days. The only reason it was recommended on my behalf for 90 days is it matches up with the legislation that says a council member must attend a meeting every 90 days, or they subsequently are required to leave office unless they get some kind of authority from the council. So 90 days means nothing, and I know some people have questioned that, and we can certainly have that discussion how that's going to look, whether we're even going to allow people to attend virtually after the suggestion of an emergency. Many municipalities are doing that, but that's not to say we have to. So it's a choice of the municipality. So maybe with that one, seeing that that's probably one of the bigger ones, we'll have a discussion.
Alan and Debbie.
So just clarify for me, Dean, right now we're all in contravention of 8.4, correct? Should there not be something in there that states during the pandemic? Like there's, to me, there's not enough in 8.4. All of us sitting here right now as councillors are in breach of 8.4.
No, but we're using 8.2 currently, Councillor Wren. 8.4 is basically based on, if we go back to 8.3, which says notwithstanding 8.2, which is the other one, a member may participate electronically in a meeting council with access to both audio and be counted and determined quorum in present at any point in time. So that's 8.3 is saying after the pandemic is over, then you can attend a meeting virtually. And then 8.4 says, based on 8.3, that you got to attend every 90 days in the council chambers.
I guess I'm not seeing that then, Dean,
Okay.
that says.
Because
like to me when I read it, I still think that when I read that whole section, that there needs to be something more in 8.4 that allows us to not have to attend in person every 90 days. And I don't know how you wordsmith it.
Well, no, I mean, okay, 8.2, and I think Councillor Watt, we had this discussion too, I think. So 8.2 is basically the head of council may allow for a meeting to be exclusively electronic in the event of emergency, pandemic, and other circumstances. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, the mayor can do that anytime. Okay, so now based on 8.3 says not counting 8.2, a member may participate electronically in and maybe it should be any meeting. Maybe that's a better word. Any meeting of council with access to both audio and video and be counted and determined a quorum members present at any time. So 8.3 is basically in normal times, I guess, as you would put it. And we can rephrase that. Maybe that's where we got to say, notwithstanding 8.2 and within an emergency or a pandemic, or the mayor kind of suggesting it, something kind of.
Well, to me, there has to be something more in 8.3 and 8.4. It's 8.4 that really.
Well, no, 8.4 is based on 8.3, meaning 8.4 is the one. If you got 8.3, means that any other time other than emergency or a pandemic or other circumstances, the mayor says 8.3 says we're allowing council members to participate virtually or electronically, and then
the option.
And then 8.4 basically says if we're going to go to 8.3, then you got to be prepared to come in at least once every 90 days. And I can work it. Yeah, if you're not comfortable with that, we can certainly. But that's the intent anyway.
To me, it just doesn't. It's not making sense. I agree that you should be there every 90 days, except for extenuating circumstances that we're in right now.
Okay, so I will, if that's, okay, let's get the gist of what council wants and we can certainly make that.
Okay, Debbie, and then Brian.
All right, thank you. So 8.3, my suggestion would be that you add the words notwithstanding 8.2, with the prior approval of the mayor, a member may participate electronically in a meeting. But the whole rest of it is fine. That's I don't think I do not support 8.4 at all. 8.4 would allow, you could end up in a council meeting with the mayor and no one else sitting there, or the mayor and one person, or one person sitting there and the mayor and everybody else sitting at home. I don't understand why we would all of a sudden not have, when we can be together and make decisions and discuss things together, and members of the public can actually be there to witness it and hold us accountable, why we would suggest that going forward, You only have to show up every 90 days. Other than that, you can stay at home and do your meeting by electronic means. So I don't support that at all. I do support 8.3 with the approval of the mayor. A member may participate electronically. There are a number of people who, may perhaps, go away for a couple of months, but would still like to participate. I could do that electronically with the mayor's approval. So that, if you get the gist, that's my position. Thank you.
And then Brian.
I just didn't know if in 8.2 you could say for the duration of the pandemic, which would solve the 90 days not meeting around the table.
But it could be other than a pandemic. It could be a second pandemic. It could be a different type of emergency. Like we're only, what you're saying is to deal with the present situation.
Yeah,
right?
I'm thinking as a whole, if we're all meeting this way and that's the only way we can meet, the 90 days is nullified. But the 90 days is really for an individual who's, off in world tour or something. And
well, that's basically what exactly is saying. It's obviously 8.2 is saying during an emergency, we're not putting there. It's notwithstanding 8.4 is basically stating that after notwithstanding 8.2, which is the one with a normal meeting. So, no, the 8.2 allows the mayor, the head of council to allow for a meeting to be exclusive. And there's no, the 90 days does not come into play with that to 8.2.
I guess maybe what we're getting at is Debbie's suggestion that it's the call of the mayor to allow Chris to participate from Cochrane or something. If he asked me this week and he's out there on holidays, he wants to participate, that's great. If next week he's in Florida and he wants to participate again, like where do you set the limit? So it would have to be a valid reason, and it's not continuously happening, I guess is what Dean's trying to get at. And unless you want to put a number in how many times you can participate, or leave it to discretion of the chair as Debbie has suggested.
I mean, I guess another one, just I kind of like Debbie's. I mean, that certainly we could take out the 90 days and just leave it approval of the mayor. Now, it might be, I guess the concern is there a conflict? Like, I mean, I know our council gets along, but if it was a conflict or something, then the mayor's making a decision. Should that be a decision of council, a majority of council? No, that's because of an administrative step, or is the mayor sufficient?
Debbie?
Yeah, mute, Debbie.
Wrong screen again, sorry. So adding for the approval for 8.3, that's, I think that's important because it allows the mayor to give that discretion. But if you leave 8.4 in, that means that you don't have to get the mayor's approval. You just show up every 90 days. I think that is an unbelievably wrong road to go down.
And I agree, Reeve Robinson. I think if we're going to put with the approval of the mayor, then the 90 days is gone. It's all up to the mayor. So we can, then it's up to that. If that's what council wishes, I certainly don't have any issues with that.
So is council okay with that then? Any other comments? Alan?
What if there's some type of dispute, like Dean had said earlier, or a conflict between the mayor and a member of council? Should there not be some type of conflict resolution based on being able to participate electronically?
Could I add a clause maybe below that instead of the 90 days that if there is a conflict or if the member isn't satisfied with the mayor's decision, that it be come to a vote of council or go to a vote of council? I mean,
sure.
Yeah, that works. Okay. Because you're right, Dean, we all get along right now, but the next term of council, you might have members that don't get along, and then what, right?
Yep.
Okay,
I will add that clause. There's something in there for the next one. Okay.
Probably 9.1.
Okay, so the only thing I'm going to flag is the 8.6 as well. So if council is being held solely using electronic, basically what we're doing now, and the public is still not allowed into the chambers, even if we come into the chambers and we're not going to allow the public, then we have to be open council meetings that need to be presented by public viewing through webcasting technology or recorded. and recorded. Okay, just so you're aware of that. Okay, the closed meetings for 9.0 closed meetings in camera. The last two have been added as another reasons to go into closed session, or I guess the last three, I should say. So a trade secret or scientific, well, you can read them. Basically, there's two other clauses to be able to go into closed session. Okay, that was legislated, so that's part of it. Now the yellow one is subject to section 8.2 and 8.3, and I may have to work on these again, but in closed meeting, a member may participate electronically in closed meeting of council with access to both audio and video, be counted and determine the quorum. So also, basically, this is just saying enclosed as well. Sorry, Deb.
Debbie?
Thank you. So I would suggest adding to that the member of council attests that they are using a secure internet connection and are alone. Because, I mean,
Okay.
you can't have somebody sitting at Tim Hortons going
Yeah.
into a closed session.
Okay.
Debbie, you're
But
still
I'm
muted.
suggesting it, not that I'm suggesting anyone would, but just saying.
No. So how did you put that, Reeve Robinson?
Secure
Secure.
and alone.
Attest that they are using a secure internet connection and are alone.
Okay.
So that would be done at every meeting?
Well, we would ask them, probably pose a question at the time when the closed session, they just
Okay.
have to swear that they're doing it.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. Okay, regular times, the council. The only reason I flagged this, there was a feeling, a discussion possibly that maybe now is the time to adjust the time. I know many members of council can meet during the day now. I know there are some still. I know Councillor Plow is still there. Just wondering, just wanted to flag it. Do we want to start earlier at 5 or 4:30? You know, staff is waiting around for an hour and a half before the meeting starts, but it's, you know, but if that's the wishes of council, we can continue to do that. Now, the delegation part, we can certainly move them a little, accommodate them if there's an issue later in the meeting. But anyway, that's just flagged for a discussion.
Debbie, Alan?
Thank you. I would prefer to keep the meetings at 5:30. I think that once we start having meetings during the day, we reduce significantly the number of people who can run for office, because anyone who's employed during the day, it's harder going to be able to run for office and go to a meeting. So I think 5:30 is actually as early as we should be asking people to attend a meeting, especially if they are employed.
Alan?
What about the day of the week? Tuesdays just happens to be men's night for golf. So
Move it to Wednesday. Anybody else? Now, I think the biggest part was Dean's suggestion was 5 o'clock instead of 5:30. Chris, how do you feel on that? Right now, I think you're about the only one that's employed. The rest of us are at home right now, right, Jen?
Yeah, it's hard to say, Steve. Like currently on the job I'm on now, I can make, like I got home at 5 tonight, so I can make 5 or 5:30 at the council chambers or here, but my job isn't always in at all at the hospital. Like someday we're going to be done and we'll be moved on to another place. So I really don't know, but how about Friday morning at 9?
Okay, so I guess we'll leave it at 5:30.
Okay. Well, unless Debbie's got a comment.
Debbie?
I wanted to speak on 10.2 if we're done 10.1.
Yeah, we are.
So I would suggest, I'm not sure the reason why would we have that we're going to automatically reconvene the following Tuesday. My suggestion is a meeting commencing at 5:30 p.m. shall adjourn no later than 9 p.m. period. Get rid of the rest, because if you go down to 19.2, it takes care of the rest.
So I just rerun that 10.3 does too. It says despite 10.2, council can extend the meeting time beyond adjournment time specified by 2/3 vote.
No, I know, but you're talking about reconvening the following Tuesday, like as if there was,
No.
if there's stuff that's left over. So if you look at 19.2, it gives the, I'll have to go down to do it, but.
Yeah, but I guess this one, no, 10.2 or 10.3, it says despite clause 10.2, we can extend it. So even though 10.2 is there, it's basically 10.2 is just saying that's the terms of the meeting. But 10.3 then does give that luxury of council to 2/3 vote to kind of change it.
Absolutely. But the suggestion that we would reconvene the following Tuesday, I don't think is needed.
Oh, I see.
Because in 19.1, it says, if in the mayor's opinion, it is not essential that the matters on the agenda be dealt with before the next regular scheduled meeting, then the mayor shall announce that the business will be taken up at the next regular scheduled meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay. I see what you're getting at. Okay. I'm fine with
take
that.
out that last. It will automatically reconvene the following Tuesday at 5:30. Just take that out.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Recording equipment, basically just some protocols with regards to cell phones and any other recording equipment. So that's not really unless anybody has any comments with that. Okay, we move on to 22, order of business of council. So basically we've just adjusted the agenda to kind of.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Okay, go.
Sorry. Oh, I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, do you want, so we're just going to do the highlights right now and then we're going to go back?
That was my intention.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So order of business, council, it's basically kind of changing, it's kind of using what we have and adding a couple other things that we have been doing, putting it in practice. So, council comments was never there before and now it started to. So closed session, obviously, and the committee structures is basically the same thing, but just putting the headings. So I don't know if there's any questions with that. Okay, if not, we move on to 28, which is the standing committees. In consultation with the mayor and now with our structure being changed a little bit with regards to new staff, and there was just felt that maybe we needed to adjust the standing committees to kind of bring them up in line with what our kind of work plan is. So we've left four standing committees. The one be constituted planning and emergency services. Second one, corporate services and protection, public works and property, and community development, recreation, and culture. And at the back, you'll see the sheet is basically taking all the mandates and putting them under specific committee. The subcommittees will be under specific agendas of the particular standing committees. I know the mayor has some, also he'll be, I think, going to meet with all the council members before January 1st, and we'll associate the names. That's why we didn't give the names. I mean, obviously at this point they're still there, but they may get changed or adjusted as see fit.
So to that note, I would ask that each council member contact me in the next couple of weeks to set up a time. I'm generally available during the day. So just give me a shout. We can meet at the house. Mainly it's just to, as I said before, to discuss, we're halfway through the term, how it's going. Are you happy in the committees you're on? Would you like to see any changes? And so forth. So it's a conversation I think it's good to have halfway through the term. So just contact me anytime. Okay, Dean.
31 being a new section was very light in our other bylaw. So we were putting a notice of motion section. So basically brings up the idea that if anybody has a particular notice of motion that they want to bring forward, gives you the protocols on how that's going to work. It just wasn't there. And I know we ran into something a year ago or so, wondering about how that was going to work. So that's just listing that and as a procedure. Okay, recorded vote 36. Again, the preference that we seem to have, well, in our last bylaw we had is if we are in the chambers, then and we're able to, everybody would stand in favor and stand in in opposition. So that would be the of choice. If it's done electronically, then the requester would be called first and then alphabetically thereafter.
Debbie?
Thank you. I think we should delete 36.2 standing, and if you're in favor, or those who don't stand are against. That seems rather antiquated to me. I think 36.3 is what we should be doing, because again, if we're going to be live streaming our council meetings, people need to be able to hear that when they call for a recorded vote, instead of trying to figure out who's standing and not standing in these little screens is a strange thing. So I think that standing up or not standing up, your name's being called and you're for or against, and it's recorded as that. I don't understand the standing up thing at all, really.
Well, the reason for standing is there was a lot of people that felt that when you start asking, and now if you have a structure of alphabetical, then the A's get to make the hard decisions and the Z's just kind of follow suit and make it kind of politically. That was the argument. Standing meant that everybody had to stand at once because you're not following somebody else's lead. That was the only comment that was made to me years ago, which does make some sense. But I mean, unless we do something else, and I mean, I've even seen it that the mayor and the reeve get to go last. I've seen that too. Maybe that's kind of some reason too. But alphabetical, maybe we can start if the requester kind of comes in, for instance, if it's Councillor Ugly, then we start at him and go down from there, and then then Councillor Gauthier goes last that time because we go downwards. There's different ways of doing it, but whatever council feels.
Jennifer, then Debbie.
I was just going to say, we're not even standing for the Lord's Prayer now. So the whole concept of standing for votes, it's very.
No, the reason, sorry, Jennifer, but the reason why we're not standing in the Lord's Prayer is because nobody can see you if you're standing.
Correct.
And they may not know if you have shorts on or your pajamas on or whatever. So
well,
we just decided that during this time
it would be the same for the vote.
No, but the vote would only happen standing if we're in the chambers all together. And if not, then it would be this way of being called first and alphabetical.
Okay,
how does Councillor feel? Do you want to just sorry, Debbie, go ahead first.
Well, it doesn't say anything about only if we're in the chambers, but I still think that's an old way of doing things.
Okay, so let's go with Dean's idea. Whoever brings the motion forward, you start with that person and you go alphabetically after that. Is council okay with that? Yes? Okay.
Okay. Okay, and okay, I guess the declaration of interest, which I didn't highlight everything again. I know we had this quick discussion the other day with if somebody declares a conflict of interest in a matter, then we're stating in this one, and it was in our other bylaw too, but it's not in the act, but it does state in our bylaw that the person must leave the room in this case. And the other thing is, but they can vote on the confirming bylaw, so they can come back in and vote on the confirming bylaw. But they must leave the room according to what's in here. If we want to change that, we can, but it's up to the council to decide.
Debbie.
Okay.
Brian, after that.
According to the municipal act, they do not have to. So I think that's what we should be going with as well.
Brian?
I kind of felt that 47.1 and 47.7 were contradicting each other.
No, and I asked Dean the same question today. Dean, you can answer that.
Which one? 47.1 and what?
Yeah, saying you
number 1 and number 7.
You can move or second it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No. So number 1 certainly is a matter that you have to declare an interest on, but the confirming bylaw takes the whole meeting and puts it into place. The decisions have been made on the matter by council. So the confirming bylaw is an eligible thing that you don't have to declare interest there, because by then decisions have been made. There's nothing in there. If the motion, that's only confirming the motions that we've already passed. So it's so the person can kind of move or second that. That's the thought process there. It's not the actual bylaw. For if we take Councillor Watt's scenario last weekend, He declared interest when they were doing the public participation. Then he came back to the meeting. He declared interest when they did the bylaws. His bylaw, he had to get he left, or in this case, whatever. So he declared an interest there, but he could come back and do the confirming bylaw. That's not a conflict of interest. Because it's the whole meeting.
So I'm going to apologize because I have a note for myself and I'm not sure if it's somewhere else or if I was referring to this, but if a council member declares a pecuniary interest in a closed meeting, they must leave.
Yes. Oh yeah, no. Yeah. Okay. You're right. You're correct.
Okay. So in an open meeting, they do not have to, according to the municipality, they do not have to leave, but in a closed meeting, they do have to leave.
Correct. But we can ask them to put in this procedure that they do leave the meeting. It's in our rights to do that. So that's up to council whether they want that there or not.
I guess my issue, sorry, Alan, is that who in their right mind would want to stay in the council meeting if they could have an influence on a vote, whether it's a blink of an eye or kicking the shins beside the person or whatever? Why would you want to stay? I think it would definitely influence people's decisions because they, as we said before, they may not be able to say what they really want to say because the person's in the room. That's my comment. Alan?
So just a question, Dean, what takes preference, our procedural bylaw or the municipal act?
Our procedural bylaw, if it enhances the act, then we're okay. If we obviously can't go subsequent to the act, but we can enhance our kind of protocols to the act.
So we could be up for a challenge on that because does it enhance the act by, or not? It's up for interpretation, right?
Well, I think I don't have the act in front of me. I didn't read the clause. I agree with Reeve Robinson that you don't have to leave the room, but I can certainly check that to see. I'm sure I think we can put it in place. It's always been in place in my scenario, but I could ask. I could certainly get an opinion from that.
You know what? I'm agreeing that that's what should happen, but again, I did get legal advice on that. And was told by a lawyer that you'd be nuts to stay in a meeting where you declared a conflict, because just by sitting there, somebody could say that he influenced my decision by him sitting there or her sitting there.
So really what we're doing was we're eliminating an issue that could arise.
Correct. But if council feels, I guess the question is, if we had a choice, would you prefer to put it in here and have the member leave the room? And if so, then I will check to make sure that that's appropriate. Is that what we're after, or we just want to leave them in the room? Then I can take the whole clause out.
Keith? Oh, you're muted, Keith.
I'd make the motion that if the person who is declaring the pecuniary interest, that they leave the room.
Okay. Now we're not really making motions right now, are we, Dean? Or no?
No.
Just general consensus. Okay.
Debbie,
you're in favor of that?
No, I want to have a question. No, I'm not in favor of it. So what I would ask is that Dean, before we put this into a procedure bylaw, that Dean gets a legal opinion of whether or not we can do that. But I would like to see a clause identifying that when you declare a interest in a closed session, you must leave. That should be in. There's no question whatsoever in a closed meeting that you must leave.
Okay, Brian.
I guess my question would be is if, as a councillor, you were making a presentation to council for something that you would be permitted to make the presentation, but then I would want to leave when discussion and voting were to happen afterwards, because there's a potential for a councillor to come forward with a proposal that they would be in conflict with, and yet it's going to be something that would be of benefit to the municipality should it go through, and so they shouldn't be
But remember, conflict of interest is a pecuniary interest directly to yourself or your spouse or your immediate family. So there's that line of where that lands. I understand, and it could happen, Councillor Hughley, but in that case, it would be considered a pecuniary interest, and you should not be presenting or even part of the presentation. In my opinion, I mean, it's each member's got to decide for their own, but in my opinion, if it's a direct pecuniary interest to yourself, like if you're there to present that, you know, your son is selling some products and you want to pitch that we buy products from him, I don't think you'd want to be doing that.
No.
Okay, so that's the highlighted versions, and I will correct what we've talked about and bring it back to council the next meeting. Other than that, is there other items? I know Reeve Robinson had one anyway, but. Okay.
Debbie and Chris.
Thank you. Actually, I have two. So 11.0, place of meetings. Meetings of council should be held in council chambers. You need to add something about electronic, or at least meetings of council. The mayor or the head of council shall be in the council chambers, something like that, because I know that Steve does go there, but the way it's written, it sounds like we have to be there, and obviously we can't. So there has to be something there. And just the other one is 25.9.
Well, hold on, Debbie, before you go to 25. Let's do number 11, because it does say, or at such other place specified in the agenda. So doesn't that cover Zoom?
I don't know. Does our agenda specify we're having an electronic meeting? I'm not sure. So maybe it does.
Or maybe if it doesn't, it should.
We should, yeah. Maybe that's what it should, yeah. Okay.
Maybe that's what should happen.
Okay.
Sorry, Deb. And your other one?
No, the other one, it's simple one, 25.9. It talks about delegations providing written copies.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Written.
Yeah.
And electronic.
Correct. And Councillor Watt pointed that out to me this week, and I did have that, and I apologize I didn't highlight it. What is 25? So we put any individual or group granted opportunity to appear as a delegation shall provide 10 written copies of the presentation or provided electronically for distribution to council. The presentations or copies must be provided to the CAO prior to the meeting. So yes, we did put that in there. Thanks.
Okay. I think it should be electronic, because, you know, if they just provide you with a written copy and then you've got staff trying to do it electronic, it has to be electronic. People have to figure that out.
Yeah, it's just we're trying to accommodate. I appreciate that. Councillor Poe, I guess had some.
Oh, sorry, Chris.
Bet you Tim wishes you went ahead now. Anyway, Dean or Steve, if you want to try a couple at 5 o'clock, like in December, we can give it a go. And hold on, you lead them to staff time too. I think, can they not always participate electronically if they choose to? Because they're not voting or doing anything like that. Charlene is, unless they're presenting, like Charlene's presenting a budget or something, that's a different circumstance. But for example, we could have just taken Katie's report in and then asked you questions. If you couldn't answer them, you could get back to it.
Yeah, I think we've had this before, Councillor Poe. I think the idea with staff, I mean, and you may be onto something with regards to electronic. They can do it from home, and you know, that might be something that we will, you know, take further when we do get back. Maybe that'll be something. But for the department heads and some of the staff, listening to council, especially the committee meetings such as this, it's good that we're all participating, because there's something that gets lost in the translation and lost. And I can't go and explain everything that's discussed. So it's kind of good that they, you know, I think it's good value for them to sit in and listen to the discussion, at least to see on a monthly basis, to see where we're at and what we're doing. So that's kind of the thought process there. But your idea of maybe them participating electronically, that might be something that happens in the future when we get back into the chambers.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we're going to get down to, maybe we'll take a break before we get to Tim. No, just kidding, Tim. We'll do you first. The October fire report. Any questions for Tim on that, or Tim, anything for you to add?
No, I just want to add is when Brian asked me about that what the consultant came up with. Everything on that list has been done except the radios. Of course, the radios everything's on hold with the radios because of COVID. And the master plan I started, and then because of COVID, I haven't been able to finish it. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I mean, I will finish it this year, but it's hard to do much. Okay, with the COVID thing, we're having enough trouble just trying to keep the things in operation because of just because of the way things are. And I mean, everybody knows that. I'm not whining. It's part of life today. So it's I mean, if we ever get over this COVID hump, in 2022 or 23, we have some major problems that have to be taken care of. Not only in the fire business, but in Ontario wider, especially in our area. I know there's lots of things we have to look at, but right now we're trying to hold our own and get the job done and keep everybody as safe and well as possible. So,
okay. Any questions from the report for Tim? Keith?
Sorry.
Just a quick one. The two items, 96 and 98, where the hydro wires are down, is that the fire department's total responsibility to wait until hydro gets there to do whatever they need to do?
The problem is, Keith, once we're called, we have to respond. And once we're there, if the hot wires are dangerous, then we have to stay there until we hand over the scene to somebody else. Because if we drive away, we leave it there and say, oh, that's fine. And somebody comes along and touches it and gets hurt badly, then then we're liable for it. So once we accept the call, we're liable for the scene until we turn it over to somebody else.
So in that one on the drive-in road, the police were obviously there. They won't stay and monitor those wires now.
No, sorry. No, they won't. They won't, because it's not in their job description. It is in our job description because it's a danger. So it is part of our job.
Okay.
Okay. Tim, thanks very much.
Okay.
I know you're a lot more knowledgeable tonight after sitting in for a while.
Yeah.
And keep the lights on, Tim.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay, we're going to take 5 minutes, folks.
It's like Gilligan's Island. I can't pedal fast enough to keep the power going. Take care, everybody.
Okay, you too, Tim. Stay safe.
Yep.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes, folks. we didn't do one before we went on a break, so I need a first and seconder. So I have Alan and I have Jennifer.
Okay, so therefore moved by Councillor Wren, second by Councillor Gochi, that corporate services accept procedural bylaw in principle and that the bylaw be forwarded November 17, 2020, regular council meeting for enactment with the amended changes.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. We'll go down to animal control on the 3 months. Any questions on that? Debbie?
Groundhog? What are we doing with groundhogs? Like, I know we're asking questions. The gentleman's not here to answer them, but I'm just not sure what we're doing with why we're being called about groundhogs.
What may have done is there might have been a call, and because of the animal, we go, and normally we would just help by providing a trap or something if the person has kind of a infestation of groundhogs. I don't know if that's the proper word, but a groundhog problem within the house, then we would provide a trap. We do not kind of monitor the trap, but we have in the past provided the trap. So maybe that's it, Reeve Robinson. I'm not positive.
Anything else for council? Okay, we'll move down to proposed transition date for Blue Box. That's just saying that all municipalities were allowed to pick a year for transition. And because our contract ends in 2025 starting, I believe, that's the year why we picked 2025. I think we've had this discussion already, but just want to include, I couldn't find this for a while. We had to go under Ottawa Valley to Waste Recovery Center to find it. Any questions on that? If not, letter from the auditor. It's just information. If not, we'll go down to subcommittees, Festival Hall. Jennifer?
Sorry, nothing to report.
So he's shut down, obviously, right?
He is shut down. As for right now, there's not really much he can do. So he's just booking within the next 6 months to a year, but he may have to keep rebooking and rebooking and rebooking.
Right. Okay, Public Library. Keith, I know we've got a few meetings in there. The minutes. Is there anything you want to add or?
A couple of things that it's been a pretty busy month. The library staff requested to decertify from QP October 15th. They did have a vote, and we've since been notified by the Ministry of Labor that they have certainly reached the goal and are now decertified. The minutes that are in the package have been a little bit long, and we're making steps to kind of shorten them and still have them as information as possible. Digital online usage of the library is still increasing all across the board in the city, Laurentian Valley. Of course, the in-house programs have been slowed right down. There's one online story time that's going on, and they're looking at having probably an outreach for Laurentian Valley, maybe somewhere that one of the rec centers, that if somebody was to call in and wanted a book, they would have a date maybe or a time that it would be brought out to one of those centers for the people to try and meet them halfway if they didn't want to get into the library. That one's just under discussion right now.
Okay, good. Any questions for Keith? Seeing none. Move down to Public Works. Mark, you have a tender for us?
Yes, so my first report is for the recommendation for approval of tender LV PW-2020-09, and the award is to Valley Truck and Spring Service for the purchase of a 2021 tandem plow truck. At the September 1st Committee and Council meeting, approval was given for the procurement of a replacement plow truck to be received and included in the 2021 budget. The tender was called held on September 17th. It closed on October 15th at 2 o'clock. We did receive 2 bids before the closing date. The lowest submission was from Valley Truck and Spring in the amount of $278,320 plus HST. The truck is a 2021 International and does have Viking Surveys Pro Line equipment, which is preferred equipment for the municipality. The second submission in the amount of $284,300 plus HST was received from Francis Truck Center Incorporated, and this truck was a 2022 Freightliner, and again with Viking Surveys Pro Line equipment. There was a tender that was rejected from Cornwall Freightliner. It was hand delivered, but it came in 40 minutes late. It came in at 2:40 in the afternoon, and it was after our tender opening. We did do something a little bit different. We did a tender opening broadcast via the Zoom platform. So that allowed staff to be in the council chambers, and the 2 bidders that did submit actually participated virtually. So they were able to be live from their place of work in the opening, and it worked quite well. And we recorded the opening and have it saved to be documented as well. The delivery date for the new truck is June 15th, 2021. That's well in advance of the October 1st, 2021 deadline that we asked for. The budgeted amount that I had asked for in September was $290,000. The truck coming in at $278,320 is slightly less. And just as a comparison, I'd look back to our last 2019 truck, and it was just over $280,000. So we're actually a couple $1,000 less than what we were a couple of years ago. And that fear that with the pandemic that prices were increasing, this is one thing that I'll gladly say has gone down in cost with the pandemic. So I'm just looking for the recommendation for the award to Valley Truck and Spring Service.
So if we don't have any questions for Mark, can I get a mover or seconder for that, please? Debbie and Chris.
We have a motion moved by Reeve Robinson, seconded by Councillor Plow, that the committee and council recommends that tender LVPW 2020-09 be awarded to Valley Truck and Spring Service, Pembroke, Ontario, in the amount of $278,320 plus HST.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Shady Nook Rec.
Yeah, so this report is for the recommendation to apply for a grant for the renovations at the Shady Nook Recreation Center. The Township Council has approved funds for the renovation at the Shady Nook Recreation Center. We called tenders at 2 different times in 2020 for the work. In February, the lowest submission was approximately $32,000. We retendered in September. The lowest submission increased to $47,000. With our original budget of $20,000, it was determined that we couldn't accept either bid as they were over budget. On October 28th, staff were advised that the province of Ontario has announced the launch of a COVID-19 resilience infrastructure stream. And this funding opportunity includes projects that are related to renovations in regards to recreation centers and shelters. And they also deal with new builds, renovations, and enabling physical distancing. So staff, we had a discussion amongst quite a few staff as the funding came out, and staff feel that the washroom renovation would be a good fit for the funding, and are also recommending the installation of a shower facility, which is a required element of the township's emergency evacuation center. Several years ago, the township CEMC had commissioned a shelter survey by the Red Cross, and on-site showers were one of the items that were listed as a deficiency. And currently the details of the funding and specific timelines have not been released by the province, but they have noted in the press release that projects must start by September 2021 and be completed by December 31st, 2021. I did reach out to Councillor Hughley, and we had a discussion about this prior to putting the report together, and also had a discussion with Jason DeMont, the chairperson of the Recreation Committee, as well as talking to several staff. The financial implications are unknown at this time, but as we get some more information from the province and timing, and we get further involved, I'll bring that forward to council at a later date.
Thank you, Mark. Debbie and then Alan.
Thank you. So when I'm looking at this, we received the Safe Restart funding from the province as well. I don't know how much money is left over from that, but I would think that, I just hate to see we're delaying this. If we have the money in that Safe Start funding to do the washrooms and the shower, I think we should be doing it. Certainly I would not say not apply for the resilience fund, but either way, I think we need to get those washrooms done.
Can anybody answer that question?
There's approximately $50,000 left, but certainly we could use that fund, or we could use perhaps some efficiency funding. There are some reserves left as well in the recreation reserve, but I don't know the details of that other fund with regards to this report.
Dean, you're muted, I think.
I don't know. Well, he's not muted, but.
Yeah, sorry. The resiliency fund seems to fit very well for that. So hopefully we're successful with that. But certainly if we don't get that, then we could move forward. But we will have to discuss it again, because we did put, unfortunately, the first time around, we put council committed 20,000. It came in at 28. They weren't prepared. They thought it was too heavy, the cost. So we left that go. And now obviously we're way above that now. So we're just got to take a pause here, maybe make that application, hope we get the funding, and then it covers itself. If not, then we'll be discussing them.
Mark, could that grant also go to Snow Country's building at Allison Fraser? Would that apply?
We'd have to see if we could, I guess, apply for two different applications. Sometimes you're allowed to do that. Sometimes they say you're not. So the media release was very vague at this point. So we don't have a lot of details. So something I guess to consider now. We did apply for funding for the Timberline through a stream previously in the year, and we haven't heard back from that yet. So that application for that washroom renovation is still pending right now.
Debbie.
So just with your comment, I made a presentation at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario in August to MPP Crawford about the resilience fund coming to fruition. He indicated at that time that put in as many projects as you want and you feel qualify, and hopefully you'll get one of. So I would think that, once we have all the criteria, that we should, apply for the washrooms, but apply for anything we can around the skating trail improvements as well.
Okay. Jennifer.
Sorry, you had made a comment earlier that we're halfway through this term. Shady Nooks washrooms were when I was on that committee. So we're going back, I'm going to say 3, maybe 4 years that we've been trying to get these washrooms done. So I think, honestly, this should be one of our priorities. They've been waiting patiently for almost 3 to 4 years.
Well, what's council's wishes? Can we use that fund? Can we use the funds out of there and still apply? And if we get it, we put the monies back in the resilience fund, or no?
Well, normally those grants, are you wait to get the funding before you do the work. I don't know the criteria. Maybe it's different in this case, but the criteria to resilience fund, I think would bode well with the emergency evacuation center. Obviously, we're going to have a fairly good, I would assume, a good shot with that, but if we do something else, we may not get it. So anyway, it's a council decision. I want to spend it on the other one. And the other thing is the cost of them right now, like to go double, like, is that something we want to do as well? Can it wait another 6 months? I mean, I understand what Councillor Gauthier stated, but the costs have got to come down. I mean, it's crazy right now.
Well, Chris?
Just to Dean's last point there, I think, Mark, I'm not sure all the work that was supposed to be done there, but could you do a request for a proposal instead? And what we're finding, like on our end of things, is that prices are actually pretty low. Like if it doesn't involve lumber, it's pretty low.
Okay, yeah, we could try that approach. It's I know the lowest submission contractor, when finding out that we weren't accepting again, has taken on other work. So I know to go to that contractor now and say, you know, we've decided to accept that submission. We can't do that because they've committed to other work now for the remainder of the year. But we could do the request, and maybe something else, knowing that this probably wouldn't happen early until 2021. Could we, I'll say, see what comes out for the resilience funding, make that application, and if it's not successful, then use the reserves and the other funding and cover it off that way. Sort of, you know, try for, I'll say, the free money first, and then have that as a backup plan, but be committed to that, knowing that it's probably going to be early 2021 when the work's going to start anyway.
Yeah, at the same time, I don't think the hall is being used now at all. It was being used for COVID testing, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So go along with Mark's comments. Council good with that? One way or the other, we'll have it done by the spring. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Do need a motion to apply for the grant, though. So mover and seconder.
Chris and Alan.
Moved by Councillor Plow, second by Councillor Wren, that the committee and council recommends that a grant application be filed for renovations at the Shady Nook Rec Center.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
I just had one more question, Steve, about that. Sorry, Mark,
Sure.
Steve or Mark, can the RFP be asked for as well as the application go in at the same time? So no work starts, but the tender's asked for?
We'll have to see what the guidelines are. Every grant application is different, so it will. Sometimes it says very clearly that no work can be done. Sometimes you can do engineering, some of the background work. So we'll wait and see what the province puts out, and then I can give up council an update, and we'll move forward from there.
Sorry, the reason being is that if the answer is no for the funding, then at least we know what to put into our budget.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Once we get the information, I'll share it out right away.
Okay. Thank you. Did we pass that motion? Yep. Okay. So go down to subcommittees, Ottawa Valley Waste Recovery Center. So the leachate system is complete and on budget. They are very busy out there, as per Chardane's comments earlier, with more landfill tonnage, recycled, etc. And we have a budget meeting third week in November. Any questions on Waste Recovery Center? Okay. Ottawa Valley CPAC. Jennifer? No. Okay.
Not the report.
Down to subcommittees. Friends of the Disabled.
Nothing to report, Steve. I see they're up and operational. Just haven't heard anything from them.
Okay. Shady Nook.
Shady Nook had another meeting again last night, and it was decided that we'll go ahead putting ice in at Shady Nook, and I guess want to kind of talk to the other rinks to see, you know, what nights we'll keep the lights on, and work with the other rinks to maximize the use for the municipality.
That's great news. Good. Alison Fraser.
Nothing to report.
Do we know anything about the carnival this winter? Has been any talk about that, or?
No talk and no meetings, and I can't see it going ahead at this point.
No. Okay. Forest Lee, nothing. Keith?
To report.
No. Pleasant View?
Nothing at Pleasant View.
Stafford Park? No. Okay. Council comments. Annie? Chris? Got to smile.
Just because I know not everybody likes this part, but under the user fee-based budget, Steve, is there part of that for municipal drains and trenching and everything? So I know that Claus has a part for draining farmers' fields and drainage tiles like that. To make a long story short, what I'm looking for is, can we do like an official study on hard piping our subdivisions for safety reasons to see what it actually would cost us to do? Reason for that is potential 2021 budgeting.
Mark, are you able to answer that, or?
Yeah, I know it's something that Dean and I have been working on with Neil Caldwell, and we have to sit down, I guess, with him and finalize that, just to get that document put forward so we know what those costs are. So we have started on that, and he's needs some information from us so he can finish up. So we'll see what we can get over to him to get that information, and then we can bring that forward for discussion.
Just maybe to add on that too as well, it's we were trying to find, I know Councillor Plows also made some comments to us with regards to possibly maybe funding each, everybody, whether we do it, I mean, there's different ways of possibilities of doing it, whether we just took off street lighting from every resident. Maybe we put on one as a drainage component on every tax bill. That's a possibility. And then how do we pay? So it's not something that's common in other municipalities that we've come across, but possibly maybe Councillor Poole mentioned is just to get an idea now, maybe with a study to see exactly what are the costs for the municipality to do hard piping of the ditches that we kind of identify, and then at least we have a number, and then possibly go down that path. So that's another idea. Councillor Plosa will certainly add that into that discussion as well.
Chris, you have a follow-up?
Debbie can go first, sorry.
Okay, Debbie.
Thanks. I really think it's a great idea, because we do get a lot of complaints from folks about their ditching, and even if we're able to do it on the same way we do our roads, we identify roads, we rate them as to how when we have to do them, and start to do it slowly. But I think it's crucial. It does impact the quality of life for folks as well. So I'm really looking forward to the report.
Chris, your follow-up?
Sorry, Shirley. It was more like I think.
Sorry, Shirley.
It was more like I think we could. Mark will know better than me, but Petawawa has an asphalt contract of some kind, so just so much paving they pay for ahead of time. So that would cover, say you were going to do our ditch out here and you had to replace the culvert across the driveway. Your pavement contract for that year would cover those driveways that you fixed. Now, if you talk about any subdivision, but like Riverview or Johnson Meadows or any of those, where the ditches are, say, below more than 2 feet deep and you can't easily run a lawnmower through there should be just a cost per foot. And I think Mark can tell me right or wrong, but I think we'd be able to just hire an operator and a laborer and start on one subdivision until it's done, and go to the next and then the next. Like, I mean, over 5-6 years, at least people see that the improvements being made.
Yeah, so the only thing it would have to be designed, because every ditch has different flows, and so that would have to be calculated in. So that needs to be engineered, and then getting into closing in ditches, we do need approval from the Ministry of Environment as well. So there's we need that as well if you're getting into significant storm sewers being created. So not saying we can't have the projects engineered ahead and budgeting moving forward for it, but we do need that engineering work done first, and those ministry approvals before we can start filling in basically every subdivision across the municipality. So like a little bit of pre-work and having it designed, we can plan to move forward and do it. But I think we just have to get that engineering done first.
I think it's good. I agree with Debbie and agree with Chris that it's very important that we start doing these. How we're going to pay for it, we'll figure that out down the road. But let's get the study done first and find out what we're up against, and we'll move on from there. Any other council comments? Charlene?
Yes, I think we could probably fund the actual study from the efficiency funding that's left of 146 or now 190,000. So we could, I would just need to know what the amount is for the actual study so that I incorporate it into this budget meeting that we're coming at next Tuesday. So if possible, if I could have that number by Thursday, no later than 2, I can incorporate it into the budget, but certainly there is funding available for that part of it. And then I guess we can look at what the engineering costs would be later on once we get the study done. And perhaps there is a way of doing that as well, like what Dean alluded to with regards to local improvement. So whoever's, fronting on that area would be charged a local improvement charge that reflects the actual cost of closing in that ditch for that particular area, if it was a particular road, if council chooses to do that, or if they choose to do it like we've done for previous projects where we closed in the ditch, like on Cheryl Street not long ago, 2018, 2019, that it's covered and offset by the taxation. So up to council, but there are some options for funding, and it would be nice to know the cost of this actual study for the 2021 budget.
So Mark, are you able to get that number by Thursday?
I can reach out to our engineer and at least get an estimate from him anyway. I know he did give us some estimated costs previously, so we could have him update that document with some new numbers if it has changed, and we can at least use that for budget.
Even ballpark would help us out, right? Okay, Chris.
Sorry, my last thing on this one, I like Charlene's last comment. Like if my subdivision is done here, then I would expect that only the people in this subdivision pay for it. A little bit different than the streetlights because that's more of a general safety thing. We all drive all throughout the township. But however, those water and sewer users, they're paying enough for what they have in the ground already. So I would expect that based sort of like the sewer, we're having drainage tiles here put in for us, so we would pay for them. A certain amount per year, for forever.
Yeah, we can certainly discuss that down the road. You've got to go back to Pleasant View that was done lately in the last 5 or 6 years that, no taxpayer, they didn't pay for it themselves there. So we'll have to come up with a plan. Maybe the township contributes some money towards it and the landowner contributes money. So we'll come up with that down the road, but let's get numbers first. Any other councillor comments? Chris?
Sorry, Steve.
Yep.
Was there engineering costs for the Pleasant View side?
I don't know.
I don't know what the engineering costs to do the other side.
No, I don't know. We haven't come across that. We've looked for that unless Mark has an update to that, but we did look for that and we couldn't see that, whether that was how that was materialized.
I forget, to be honest with you.
Mark, do you have any update to that?
No, I don't have anything different either.
Alan? No, don't remember.
Was that have anything to do with the municipal drain, the Pleasant View municipal drain,
No.
or it was totally separate?
Totally separate.
Separate.
Good.
Laurie, that's what you were to say? Yes. Okay. Okay. That's it. Dean.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Keith and Alan.
Okay, moved by Councillor Watt, second by Councillor Wren, that the council and committee meeting of November 3rd, 2020 be adjourned at 8:15 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. That's it. That's all.